usually frontline people, the people who are making the work happen every day. They weren't involved, they weren't included, they weren't set up for success, and they're the ones that drive the change, and they're the ones that need to lead on it.
The frontline workers are really the only ones that are going to get done whatever initiative, whatever's going to happen inside any organization. They could be making things, it could be a service organization. If they're not engaged and knowledgeable and able to complete the mission, it's not going to get done.
When you can get those frontline leaders engaged, and feel empowered and actually give them what they need, to truly drive this, that's when the magic happens.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Lean Solutions podcast, led by your host, Shayne Daughenbaugh, and myself, McDonald. Shayne, how are you today?
I am doing fairly well, but you see my eyes, right? Because it means that this year has been flying by. Like, I can't believe we are already to the end of quarter one. Things are just moving and shaking. And it seems like it wasn't just like a couple of weeks ago where there was that sluggish zone. I don't know if that happens in your business as well, but there was like a month or two, maybe 3, where it just like things were just really slow. And now sometimes I feel I wake up like my hair's on fire, but but I am doing well. And thank you for asking.
Good. I completely get it. It's nearly the end of Q1 and I was doing some Q1 reports today and I just couldn't believe I had to actually start them. And then I was looking back over the last few weeks going, what have I done? What have we done?
Right, that's right.
Oh my God, it's just crept up, hasn't it?
Yes, it certainly has. It has.
But we've had some really good episodes, I think, in the last quarter on the Lean Solutions podcast. Some really great guests, and today's guest will be no different. I think I'm very interested in what our guest has to say today, and I think this is a great topic, Shayne. We're going to be talking about the role of frontline leaders, which is
super important.
Yeah, so super important and something we probably don't talk about enough. So, Shayne, I have a question for you. Sure. To set the scene. I know you're similar to me in the work that you do in terms of change and improvement in organizations. Have you ever come across a situation, Shayne, where you've been in an organization and let's say the organization has some big initiative rolled out a number of months ago. Everyone has been very hyped up over it. They've had loads of work done, consultants in, processes mapped, SOPs drawn up, lots of change plans. And then you go in, maybe it's been 6 months and people say to you, well, we've done all this work and well, nothing's changed. Everything's
Yes. I have led those initiatives. In fact, I'm embarrassed to say.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like Groundhog Day, right? Except you're not waking up to Sonny and Cher. You're waking up to kind of dismay and just the same old, where you're just like, wait, what happened? I thought we made these changes.
Exactly. Oh. And you probably know then, because similar to me, I suppose we learn from our mistakes, don't we? And usually we know and we look back and it seems so obvious when you look back, but usually it's not the tools we used. It's not even, I guess, the training we put people through. It's not the plan itself. It's usually the fact that people, usually frontline people, the people who are making the work happen every day, they weren't involved, they weren't included, they weren't set up for success, and they're the ones that drive the change, and they're the ones that need to lead on it. So that's usually, in my book anyway, that's normally what goes wrong. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah. When we can now, learning some of this along the way, when you can get those frontline leaders engaged, and feel empowered and actually give them what they need, to truly drive this, that's when the magic happens. This isn't, and I think, Patrick, I attribute this to Patrick. How did he say it? Lean is not an event. Lean is a practice. And empowering our frontline leaders to actually practice this, like doctors do. They do this every day. It's that kind of practice that's when those initiatives and those great things that are done can actually stick.
And Shayne, you're going to love this. I wish I remembered who wrote this. Whoever wrote this on LinkedIn, I think it was yesterday. This is attributed to you, but I don't know your name, so I'm really sorry. But they talked about that most people, let's say, start off trying to be lean using the hardware, right? The tools, the techniques. Right. But actually, you need to start with the software, which is not the computer software, the software as in the soft skills, the communication systems, all of the things we need to set up to make sure communication and information flow happens properly. And I just thought that was amazing. Like, that's just exactly it. We just start with the hardware sometimes. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to dive into what separates great frontline leaders from those who maybe just are going through the motions every day, and how companies can actually support frontline leaders, and why investing in them isn't just a nice to have. It's basically a make or break strategy for lean success.
That is so true. Yeah. So let me introduce our guest today. Honored to have Sebastian McLeod, who is the Chief Executive Officer of TrippNT. And he's played a significant or a pivotal role in the company's growth since its inception, because it actually started in his basement. He helped transform TrippNT into an industry leader recognized by Inc. magazine as one of the fastest growing businesses here in America since 2014. As a U.S. Army veteran, Sebastian applies his expertise in organization, discipline, and efficiency to streamline operations, foster innovation, and eliminate wasteful practices. His leadership emphasizes respect for employees, customers, and product quality, while challenging his team to work smarter and solve problems effectively. Under his guidance, TrippNT has cultivated a diverse global client base, offering customizable products that enhance efficiency, a key driver, a key driver in the company's success. In recognition of his contributions, I'm very excited about this, he received the 2018 Made in Missouri Leadership Award for Manufacturer of the Year from the Missouri Association of Manufacturers. Sebastian, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh man, thanks for that's quite the
that was a mouthful, bro.
Yeah, man, you did great. But I was listening to your intro, and I'm pretty much before my bio, and I'm just nodding my head about what you guys are saying about frontline leaders. It's excellent.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, and we're hoping, Sebastian, you'll give us more insights into that. But before we get into maybe asking you some questions about lean and improvement and all the things we normally talk about, I'm interested to know about your company, TrippNT. All I know is it started in your basement. So tell us a little bit more. What is it? What do you do? Tell us as much as you can.
Sure. Well, okay, it did start in my mother's basement 31 years ago, and it was my mom and dad that were the first two employees, but my mom was a scientist at a company called Marion, and Marion was owned by a guy who was a really popular guy here in Missouri. He owned the Kansas City Royals, and he was the most coveted place to work in Missouri. But as a bench level scientist there, she had a knack for organization, and she wanted to organize her lab one day, and went to, back in those times, there were big, thick catalogs that you would buy supplies and things for the lab, but there was nothing there for organization that was specific to the lab. So she went home to my dad, who was kind of handy guy, and said, "Hey, could you make something that looked like this?" And she drew a picture for him, and he did. She took it to work. Everybody wanted one. And she thought, "Oh, we could make a business out of this." And that was the genesis of the company.
That's awesome.
And today, what I guess I would say is what we do is we make unique products that help fight disorganization in the lab and in healthcare. That's sort of in a nutshell what we do. And that's what her original products did.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Although I still think you should, have the tagline, "We put wheels on lean."
Yeah. Well, lean, one of the first things I learned was with lean, it was like, man, you do need to put wheels on everything. So like our shop, our office, everything has got wheels on it. And of course that just saves all kinds of time.
Right.
Things change and things will change. We make about 1,000 different products now, and it is all based on our knowledge, fighting disorganization is something that we do with our lean expertise.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about how we will apply what we do internally and pass those products on to our customers, along with knowledge. We also give classes, we do webinars, all free of charge for scientists and healthcare workers that are trying to eliminate frustration and fight disorganization in their own world.
And
that. Yeah.
It's interesting that the terminology you use, Sebastian. So it's not like I suppose the lean terminology we're used to. It's you've made the terminology your own. Is that something you've done intentionally?
Absolutely. We all grew up on lean terminology here, but when we went out into the world and started talking to our customers, it wasn't something that they either resonated with or were able to understand right away. So we sort of backtracked a little bit and decided, what is it that our customers are really frustrated about? And when we thought about that for some time, it was a lot about they were having a hard time finding things. They would get a new piece of equipment, or they'd get a new consumable, or a new boss, or a new space, or just the list went on and on and on, and it would cause disorder and lack of flow in what they were trying to do. So they heard disorganization, we heard 5S and continuous improvement, and we just started, working with them to what they understood, and it's worked. It's done great. It's because it's all a lot about communication too.
Yeah.
That's
Brilliant.
awesome. Yeah.
Okay. It makes it a lot easier, I think, when it comes to getting people just I'm going to say on side, but more understanding of the need for change in the first place, when we don't start with all these terms that we expect people to just learn and know, and then it almost scares them straight away. So really we just have to put what we want to do into and create a shared language around it and a shared understanding, so it makes it so much easier. Shayne, I know you said the same as well before. You've come across those situations as well, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that goes a long way. But let's dive into this, because it's not only the shared language, but it's also understanding the people that are going to be doing this work, right? So Sebastian, from your perspective, in your business, I'm assuming you in order to grow like you have, you actually practice what you preach, and I love the sign behind you, and you mentioned when we were off call that you have those one word things just to make people think, all over your plant and whatnot. But from your perspective, why are frontline workers so critical to the success of lean initiatives? And how have you seen this firsthand? Seen their impact firsthand?
Well, I will say, with all the experience I've had in my life, and that's with various other jobs, not many, but in general, and you could say this is lean, or you could say this is anything, but frontline workers are really the only ones that are going to get done whatever initiatives, whatever's going to happen inside any organization. They could be making things, it could be a service organization. If they're not engaged and knowledgeable and able to complete the mission, it's not going to get done, or it's not going to get done at a level that that it's going to satisfy the organization or the customer or whoever is deciding what is going to happen.
Right.
So it is extraordinarily critical that people on the front line who are doing the work are doing their best. I mean, and here we're looking for excellence, and we may never get there, and all we can do is hope and try. But it starts, whatever we're going to do has to be done by them. So it really can't get any more important.
Right. Now I have seen, in talking about this, I've actually worked on projects before where the frontline workers weren't terribly keen on just the idea of change in the first place. Maybe they misunderstood what we were doing. Maybe they just saw this as the flavor of the month, and they were like, well, this is going to pass, whatever. But once we were able to get them involved, once like I came into the room, not to say, hey, this is how you do things, but hey, how could you do this differently? What are some of your ideas to make this better? And involving them, they became those biggest advocates, and spreading that around. Have you experienced something similar? I mean, it's hard for me to comprehend a company that's been involved in lean for, 31 years now, like, is there still those opportunities where those frontline workers actually step up? Is everyone already at the level where you want them to be? Like, I'm sorry, I'm throwing so many questions at you.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good way to just kind of get the lay of the land here. Just to give you a little bit of context, like we always fought this organization, but we didn't really understand all of the things that were involved with that. Our first formal introduction to lean was in 2014 with a company called Lab Conco, who makes lab equipment, lab furniture that's fume hoods, biosafety cabinets, pretty sophisticated lab things. And we were super inspired by some of the stuff that they were doing over there. They're also in Kansas City. And we came back to our place and we were like, man, we're doing this. And we shut the shop down for 3 days and we started making all these improvements. We were making tools more visual and we came out of it with some beautiful stuff. And the impact was amazing. It was people, the morale went up, our production went up, our efficiencies went up. It was just amazing. And then about 3 months later, and then it was like, oh, we got to ship. We're out of time. We're working overtime. Orders are backing up. Then the regular pressures of life just keep coming in. And then we say, okay, well, we need another lean event. And then, the one part of the organization was like, oh, we don't have time for that. It was like, we can't shut down again. This is not happening.
Right.
And so it died like a lot of these initiatives died, and it died with a whimper. It never really seems to go out with a bang. It just kind of just slowly fades away and disappears.
Right. Yeah.
So it really wasn't it. So a few years passed by, and it stayed in my mind. But in late 2018, I read a book called 2 Second Lean, and it sort of reignited the lean for me in a different way. So with all those questions you asked me, Shayne, I don't know which one I'm answering right now, but
I don't either, but I love where you're going with this.
So, we decided, okay, we're going after this again. Here's the new initiative, people. Okay. We took the risk. We did it again. And yes, of course, there was, as you said, there is a lot of skepticism. Is this going to stick? But where I think we really saw what some things that we did right, and it wasn't everything, but some of the things that we did right were we communicated very heavily. We acknowledged that we had made mistakes in the past. Look, we're going to try something different here. This is not what we did last time. And in the end, there were still people that just weren't ever going to believe. And that was okay. I mean, it was our job as leaders to do our best to convince them. But, in the end, we lost some people. But we did have a lot of success, and it did change things here, and very sustainably so.
So something you said there really interests me, Sebastian. So you talked in the past about doing lean events. There were these shutdown. You made all these improvements, and I guess I am assuming here, but some of the learning was that lean is not just about events. It's not about this kind of short-term improvement. So was that part of the discussions afterwards? And what did you do based on that learning then?
Yeah, that's okay. This was probably one of the biggest insights myself that I got from other people, and then it made the biggest impact on our own organization. But throughout time, what I realized what we were doing before 2018 was we were essentially batching our events. And that was a heavy lift for some people. It was total disengagement for others. The responsibilities sometimes shifted. There was segmented schedules that all had to be aligned. It was just like, it was so much work when we were going to do one of these events. And so ultimately what we did was we changed this is sort of metaphorically, but it's also literally what happened was we we started letting our improvements flow. And
Interesting. Okay.
we went from this, hey, we're going to do this every 6 months kind of a thing, to, hey, we're going to do little bits every day. And that has probably been the biggest contributor to how far we've come and the amount of time that we've come, and the way that our organization has just changed as a whole. And I don't mean like the performance, I mean like the culture. I mean the kind of people that stayed and the kind of people that come. It is for different reasons than it used to be.
I love that. I love that, going from batching improvement to letting improvements flow. Like, Shayne, I bet you're writing that down there.
Yes, as a matter of fact, yes, I am.
Shayne, all you can see is the top of Shayne's head just writing.
That's
That's
great.
amazing. I love that. So that was massive learning. And was that a case of, how did you do that? How did you do that learning? Was it as a group? Did you bring in your frontline leaders? Was it conversations? Was it team meetings? Was it one-to-ones? What were your forums for, because this is really important. This is the part that most people don't do. They just, let's say, fail and stop. So how did you go about that learning piece with your frontline leaders?
So it all started with me reading the book 2 Second Lean. And I read this book. I got it from a company in St. Louis when we actually collected that award that you mentioned in the opening, that I had totally forgotten about. But what the most memorable thing from that trip was, I met a company like at the little mixer before you go on, before the event starts. And he's like, oh, we read this book and it's so awesome. And I'm thinking, hey man, I'm collecting this award, dude. Like, I'm the one, I'm like, the top whatever, which was totally stupid. I was never really arrogant, but I was just thinking, I didn't really take it that seriously. So he actually gave me the book. I don't even know why it was there. And I threw it in the back of my car on the way back to Kansas City. And I was 6 months later, I was driving up to see my daughter in college, about 3-hour drive. And I got this book and I said, I want to read this book. And I downloaded it real quick and I listened to it on the way up there. Okay. But the book 2 Second Lean by Paul Akers, basically, when you ask me the question, how did we do it? It started with this framework that he laid out. And the framework is basically, you're going to build into your day different segments of the day that you're going to do things. Now, there's no times involved in, or what you're going to do, but it's basically, you're going to start the day off with a morning meeting, and you're going to learn, you're going to include everybody. You're going to start removing any obstacle that would keep somebody from wanting to do their best work. Okay, so what's going on in the company? What were sales or some metrics that are important to the company? What are the other parts of the organization doing? And these are things that people, when they're detached or there's some other part of the company that, like, they don't know what's going on in sales, and the next thing a piece of machinery shows up. Okay, and they're like, well, why do we spend the money on that? And nobody really knows what's going on, and you're wasting all of this bandwidth thinking about things that aren't driving value to what you're doing in your job. And what they didn't know was that, well, sales got a new customer who's got this great new opportunity, and we're going to make these widgets for them, and it's going to drive value to the company. So there's all the noise that goes on inside an organization that doesn't drive value. So the morning meeting really brings people in together and helps start off. But from there, it's all about, okay, where are we going to drive value to the company?
Yeah.
And for us, and I'm gonna say I'm gonna say a lot of people are like this. I'm going out on a limb, but I mean, it was definitely true with us. But we didn't have 5 minutes. We didn't have 5 minutes to have a morning meeting. We didn't have 5 minutes to clean the shop. We didn't have any time because we're already working overtime. The phone's ringing off the hook. Customers are not happy. There's returns, there's things that are happening, and it's like there's never time. You never have time to get ahead of this thing. So what we did was we forced 5 minutes. Okay, and that was really uncomfortable. It was really uncomfortable for the leadership of this company, which at the time I wasn't a leader. I wasn't leading this company, but It was hard, but it took some trust, and we found 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And after 5 minutes, we found five more. And within 2 weeks, we had 15. And then it's like, okay, hey, why don't we clean the shop now? How about just for 5 minutes? We're going to get as clean as we can in 5 minutes. And so what happened is over time, things improved better. Things got better and better. And we started not working overtime. And the shop was clean. And this is over the course of 4 years. Okay. So, but
Sure.
today we don't work for the first 85 minutes of the day. And those first 85 minutes of the day are spent with our morning meeting, with some sort of a learning, okay, some sort of knowledge. And this is also super important for frontline workers. And we can talk about that in a minute. I know I'm starting to talk too long probably, but there's a learning. There has to be new knowledge. If the new knowledge stops, then stagnation will set in.
Hmm.
So there should always be an element of new knowledge, whether that's from a book or learning on the web or going to visit another company or having other companies visit you. This just should flow also. So there's new knowledge, and then we clean together. Okay, we clean this facility together. I clean, everybody cleans. It doesn't matter who you are. We're all equals when it comes to this. In my bio, you might have, I clean the bathrooms. This is kind of one of Paul's things from the author of 2 Second Lean. Like, you got to get in there and show them, man, that you're not any better. That, the bathroom is like the great equalizer. I mean, we're all the same. We all need to use it. It should be clean. We need to respect each other. So yeah, that's
Yeah, I
went on.
love that's amazing. It's sometimes I talk about like it in terms of creating spaces. So for learning and reflection, and it's
Right.
stepping back from the do to just think critically, prompt one another to, as you said, come up with new ideas, new information. And when we're not used to that, it definitely takes time, but it's there. We just need to draw it out. So I love that. That's brilliant.
Yeah, that's awesome to your your personal example of, hey, we just tried to carve out 5 minutes, or you said forced. We forced 5 minutes, and then we found 5 more minutes, and then we found
Mhm.
5 more minutes, and now 4 years later, from there, we were able to have 85 minutes that I'm sure that when you first thought of this, you were like, there's no way in the world we can't even figure five, never mind 85. So thank you so much for sharing that example. I'm hoping that it inspires some, to just that 5 minutes or 2 minutes, or whatever it is, to carve out that space to start being intentional about, we can at least do this little bit. And is it going to make a difference? I don't know, but I do believe in the compound interest of lean, I'm going to invest this little bit here, and then it's going to give me a little bit more. And if I put that back into, then it goes from 5 minutes to 10 minutes to 15 to, however long, spacing it out. But I want to, you mentioned the frontline workers, and I want to kind of go into that just a little bit deeper. What do you see from your experience? What are some key characteristics that separate truly effective frontline leaders from those who just simply manage daily operations? Because the reality is, as you pointed out, that we have limited time and resource. So not that I want to exclude anyone, but it also is, who can I invest in to get the biggest bang for my buck? And what are the characteristics of those people that you have seen that maybe they even started with, their arms crossed, like this isn't going to work, but you saw something in them, characteristics in these people that you said, if I invest in them, if I pull them on board, I know that we're going to be able to move forward with this. What would you say are some of those characteristics?
So there's a couple that have stood out in the past from my experience of people who didn't make it and people who did and thrived. And there's the first one is, if you can see a genuine caring inside of a person, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say that they already are proficient at their craft. Okay.
Sure.
if they actually care about people, and the reason why that's important, I think, is that if you're going to lead somebody who's going to be on the front line doing work, you have to understand who they are and what they want, you know, almost in their life. And it's a leader's job to then help put this job in the framework of how you're going to help them get that. It could be the money, it could be opportunity, it could be a stepping stone to say, hey, you know, I'm doing this until I get a job at Boeing or something. It doesn't really matter, but what matters is that they're there, they're in front of you, and they're on your team, and you have an objective with these people. So if they care about people, then one of two things will happen. One is they will find a way to creatively adapt how this job is going to help them get what they want, or they're going to be able to identify and help them get out of that team in a way that's respectful and, you know, with dignity, onto some place that is more in alignment with what they want to do with their life. Because if it's not there, then there's really no, and the leader, a good leader can sense that. Then they have to get something else that they need. So the good leader can get them out. So that's one thing.
That's huge. Yeah.
Yeah. The second thing is that I just went blank. I can't remember what it was.
That's all they need.
Yeah. But maybe it'll come back to me in a minute.
Well, I have a question, and just it might prompt more thinking. So I see that as well. I see the importance of a person just being a genuine, good, ethical person who cares about other people, cares about the business, wants to do the right thing. They're willing to do the job. They're willing to learn, all of that. There's another side to it as well, I think, when it comes to having the right people, let's say, driving change, because not everybody is a change driver. A lot of people come in and just do their work. They don't really, let's say when it comes to leadership, they don't maybe have that leadership bone in them, you know, and I see that. And that's okay. We don't need everybody to be a leader. But at the same time, you can't do all the work, Sebastian. So you can't be the one to come up with all the ideas. And, you know, you don't want to be telling frontline leaders what to do. You want them to come up with the ideas, and you want them to see what's needed and work with their teams to drive the change, but obviously not jump ahead of their team. So there's a real skill there, I think, in terms of working just with people, working in partnership with people, almost the ability to put on and off the leadership hat. That's what I see the best frontline leaders are able to do. They just know when to step up, and they know when to step back.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think a good chunk of that comes from knowing what they want and who they are. The second thing, I guess I would say, and I think it's in alignment with what you're saying, is the people that survived here through the changes was the ones that asked a lot of questions and were genuinely curious.
Yeah.
And because nobody has all the answers, and I think that anybody that tells you they do, unfortunately, is just probably trying to sell you something that maybe you want, maybe you don't. I don't know.
Yeah, but we don't want people to think they have all the answers, because actually we want them to work with the team to come up with the best answer. So we don't want somebody who can come in and say, I can do it all. I have all the answers.
Right.
Brilliant point. Yeah.
Those people didn't make it, you know. It's not to say, again, this is not a ding on them. This is not a ding on anybody. This is about, you know, this is about getting closer to excellence and doing what you're doing today, not what someone else wants to do or didn't sign up for or whatever. But the frontline leaders that have made it, and you know, those are the two characteristics that I saw that they showed. They were genuinely curious about, hey, how does this work? How will we get better? How did you accomplish this? And then the ones that cared about the people who they were leading.
So we know so people can have some caring ability in them. They can have some curiosity, and there's lots of other leadership skills in there that we know people need, right? What then is the role of more senior leaders or managers, senior managers, in terms of developing frontline leaders to develop these skills. So how do we improve and develop people as we go on the job, month on month, year on year? What do you think, Sebastian, is the best way to do that?
Well, okay, that's a really good question, Catherine. And I can tell you the way that we approach it here, and we have had quite a bit of success. And again, it's not perfect, but we're always, we're in the same boat as everyone else. But we also bake in time to improve our leadership skills. This is something that has to be done at a steady pace. It's got to flow. There has to be new information that's coming in. So we are at my level at the ownership company. There's 6 people that report to me. We're always reading a book. We're always reading a leadership book. Yeah. So once a week, we're bringing in new information this way. Their teams then are also doing different types of leadership activities at least once a week. So there's always new knowledge. And when it comes to leadership and being an effective leader, it's not just leadership skills, but there's all these peripheral skills that also make a difference, like communication. Communication isn't necessarily a leadership skill, but a leader has to have good communication, because if you realize in any organization, you're basically selling a vision, a bill of goods somewhere down the line, and that sale has to be, you have to be persuasive all the way down to the frontline workers. Because if they don't buy it for whatever reason, and by the way, the last stop is your frontline leader, okay? So if he can't sell this, if he doesn't believe in it, if he doesn't understand it, if he doesn't have good communication skills, it's not going to happen. So what we do, because we've learned, many times when initiatives don't work, everything is working great. Everything is seems to be going perfect all the way up until the time when it doesn't work. Okay. And when we start backtracking, why did it not work, and saying, well, what happened with the frontline workers that were that they weren't able to, accomplish this mission or achieve some objective? And it's because generally there was some piece that wasn't communicated. Maybe they thought in the past that they thought their boss was just in it for a promotion. They didn't trust somebody. And it only takes one break in that chain for the objective to not fail or the improvement to not happen. So it's super important. And this is one of the things we do with the 85 minutes a day, is that we bake in that time to say, okay, this is when we're going to learn about leadership. We're going to talk about, we always talk about what we call key moments. Everybody's going to have a key moment. Something's going to happen right in front of you, and you're not going to know what to say. You're not going to know what to do. Yeah. And the only way you're going to get better at that is if you go back, bring it upstream, push the pause button and learn and go back and take care of it. So we provide those opportunities.
That's brilliant. It's almost like peer coaching, as in you're in a room, you're discussing something, a concept, maybe the book is prompting you to talk about it, but you're sharing the learning and asking each other questions. And I just think that's amazing. I've worked with companies before who had book clubs, but they were voluntary. And I actually think that your way of going about this with your morning minutes, where you just bring it in and it's just as standard, is probably a much better idea. Because if it's voluntary, people are just going to say no, right? And you're just sort of keep trying to draw them in. But this is just the way we do things, the way we learn. I just think that's brilliant. I love that. It's micro learning every single day or week or however often you do it.
Right. What I loved about what you said, Sebastian, is rather than giving us, hey, do this, and this, you taught us how to plant the garden. You said, hey, we're cultivating this so that we can better develop our frontline leaders, but we have to be developed first, because leadership doesn't happen in a vacuum. Leadership isn't just about, me. Leadership is how I work with those that are following me. Right. Mm-hmm. That's really, it's got to be about that. It's not just for my own value. It's actually for the value of those that are on my team. Mm-hmm. And what you just described, all those things you just described, were not specific things that immediately touch into that team It is, hey, just get yourself primed and ready for those opportunities that come about, rather than here's the prescription, to do it. Hey, here's the tools to cultivate this ground so that you can lead those up. I love that. That was as I was listening to you, I was like, holy crap, he's not giving us like, hey, do this, this, and this. Like that was the question we asked. But you answered it actually a little bit better than you would have if it would have just been, hey, do this, this, and this.
And I'm still, though, there's another part to this that I wonder about. So you might have, how many frontline leaders would you have, Sebastian, roughly?
About 4. Well,
okay.
I mean, 4 in production. So I guess I look at Frontline with production, but I'd say it's probably 5.
Okay, so let's say we have 4 or 5 frontline leaders. We know that everybody has individual development needs, right? Well, that's that in most companies, not everybody's the same. So how do you tackle that part? If one of your frontline leaders maybe is a little bit disorganized and needs to improve their time management and organization and just personal management systems, another one maybe needs to get better at communicating, at coaching their team. What's your approach to developing individuals then? If the other is your approach as a team, what would you do then on maybe a more one-to-one basis?
Well,
that's a tough one. I'm glad you're answering that and not me.
I will tell you, we do a tiered, I don't know, it's not, I guess, leadership, but really, generally speaking, there's no one person that has any more than like 6 direct reports. So there is, at every level, someone is getting some sort of new learning and coaching at either level up or level down. And I guess the answer is I don't know personally how they do it, how a leader would do it at a different level other than myself. So because I'm not in those meetings, but I can answer personally myself, and that's that. As the leader of the team, of the people that I'm on, it's my responsibility to understand how I can best help my team.
Come on now.
Yeah. And that's, when I see a gap or when I have a one-on-one with somebody or I see somebody's performance who's lacking in a certain area, I feel like it's on me to say, hey, how can we help you? It looks like you're struggling with this. Like, how are we going to address that? Or do you want to address that? A lot of times by the time you get into a leadership position here, because we all have been promoted from internally, except for one person. We understand how it's okay. At the stage we're in today, it's okay to say you have a shortcoming. But a lot of times, and tell me, I promise you, that wasn't an easy place to get. People had to witness someone screwing up real bad and then checking people's reactions. And that had to happen over time before, I'm talking, a few years before, a lot of folks would say, okay, I'm not going to get destroyed for this, or I can take a risk doing this and fail.
Right.
So, to answer your question, I think it is up to the leader and how effective they can be to understand how their team is doing and where they need to step in and try to offer support.
I mean, one of the things you said earlier that I wrote down is, and it kind of ties into that, is giving space to, hey, what are the obstacles that are keeping you from doing your best?
Yeah, exactly.
And that sounds like kind of what you're saying as a leader. Hey, Shayne, what are some of the obstacles that keep you doing your best? Because we see these, like, do you see these as well? What can we do to help?
Exactly.
Like that's some pretty. That's great. That's great. Now, we are just about out of time, but I do have one more question for you, for our audience, for a listening audience here. Companies that are looking to, build that culture that you're talking about, that took years. And thank you for saying that multiple times. This isn't just something you can inject in there and suddenly, like steroids, you're lifting cars. No, this is something that has taken years, but it's not without results along the way, right? Like it's not that now you've arrived, but you've had those things along the way. So companies that are looking to build a culture of this continuous improvement, what advice would you have on maybe identifying and training or retaining even, some of these high impact frontline leaders? What can companies do?
Well, okay. I can tell you what we do.
I like this. I like where you're going.
We look hard. If you look at lean and you've got the two pillars, continuous improvement and respect for people, right? That's the simplest form that I can talk about it in. And if you take that respect for people piece very seriously, and if you believe that the performance of your company is directly dependent on the performance of your people, then what you can do and what we do is do your best as a leader to create the conditions inside of your company that are going to get the best out of people. And what that generally looks like is people need, these are from studies, this isn't for me, but a sense of belonging, okay? At an organization, if they have a friend at work, they're probably going to stay, they're probably going to do better. If they sense that there's opportunity to grow, it could be laterally, it could be vertically, could make more money, whatever that opportunity is, this is a condition that a great place will have to work, where a frontline leader or any employee is going to want to do their best.
Right.
Are they getting challenged? There has to be an element of challenge inside, because if there's no challenge, there can be no achievement. And without that achievement, this is the thing where they get to go home, sit in front of their families, fully engaged, but with the homework and the dinners and whatever, feeling good about what they did during the day, ready to wake up in the morning and drive to work and be tapping their finger on the steering wheel. It's like, so, when it comes to retention or keeping your frontline workers, creating the conditions that are going to get the best out of them as a human is what we do. Yeah.
As a human, not as a resource,
right?
Not as a cog, as a human.
They will learn. They are natural problem solvers. If they understand the mission and they're in the right condition, you will start to get the results that you're looking for. And I'm going to say this, and I know you didn't ask me, but it has to go with the compounding effect of, basically chipping away little bitty things over time. It's the sum of all these improvements from all these different people. When we couldn't find 5 minutes, now we have 85 minutes. This is the only reason, the compounding effect is the only reason we had the time to do these things. Mm-hmm. We reinvested it back into how do we make it a better place to work? How do we have fewer customer service issues? How do we, yada, yada, yada. But in the end, what's happened is our revenue per person per year has gone up 33%, and we're working 85 minutes less a day. Okay, so think about that for just a second.
Come on now.
That's that's the hard, cold data, and we have that. It's real. It's not something that we've just made up. And our lead times went from 6 weeks down to about 2 days, and they're continuing to go down. There's really no end in sight. We'll continue to do better and better. So it's not. I guess I hope to some extent I could help inspire some of your listeners. Like, this is real. This has happened. It's happened for us, and we're willing to share anything that we have at zero charge. We don't, we do tours, we do special tours, we do quarterly tours, and are on our website. I would love it if you guys came down the next time you're in Kansas City. Encourage anybody who wants to come drop by or send me an email. Like, I'm happy to help. Our whole team is happy to help. Because we have the time now. Okay.
right. Love it.
I think this has been one of the most practical sessions, podcast episodes that we've had. And I think that's really inspiring for people to get these real, I suppose, the real nitty gritty of how you have done what you've done. And I think you've laid that out really, really well, Sebastian. And I hope, and I know that so many people will benefit from having heard your story. And Shayne, or Sebastian, before Shayne, we wrap up, Sebastian, just are you on LinkedIn, or where can people reach you, or how can they reach you?
So I'm on LinkedIn. My Sebastian McLeod. Also, it's Seb, S-E-B, at TrippNT.com. Our website's TrippNT.com with 2 P's, and you can sign up for tours there if you like, or you can just send us a message, and we'll always get back. We give free classes, free webinars, and we're really we're here to help. We're here to make the world a better place. I mean, we're after a better tomorrow. We think you deserve one. So
that's amazing. That's brilliant. It's just excellent. Shayne, before we finish up, have you any last words?
Not anything other than we'll make sure we'll put those things you just mentioned, Sebastian, in the show notes so that people can find them. So if you're interested in, hey, where is this? Just check the show notes and you can click on that and get straight to it. So awesome.
So time to wrap up. Sebastian, thank you so much for an excellent conversation. Some really great tips. I really enjoyed that, Shayne. I know you did too.
Yes,
so everybody else, thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you soon. Bye for now.
Have a great day.